may have that visa interview scheduled in the coming days or weeks. So we just want to talk you through that process of how to prepare for your visa interview. And then we'll take some time for question and answer at the end of the session. So during the presentation, please feel free to type any questions that you have into the Q&A box or the chat box, and we will be happy to answer those. This session is also being streamed live on YouTube and recorded. So if you need to leave early for whatever reason or want to go back and watch this session, everything will be saved on our YouTube channel. And hopefully you all have been able to access your international portal and are checking that on a regular basis. But all of our pre-arrival webinars as part of this series are saved on your international portal. So you can go back and actually find the link to those recordings there. So if you missed any session or want to go back and watch it, make sure you're checking that international portal.
Yeah. All right. I think we're all set up now for real.
Great. All right. We always forget to introduce ourselves because we're so used to doing webinars. So I realized I did it once again.
We assume everyone knows us.
Right, at this point. Well, my name's Elizabeth. If I have not met you yet, I'm glad you're here at this session. I work with Alyssa in the Kearney International Center and work with international students who are applying for admission and joining the university. So excited to meet you on campus in August.
And I'm Alyssa Morrison, and I'm the Director of International Recruitment and Communications. And yeah, I can't believe we're already at the final visa prep session. This summer is flying by, and for some of you, that's probably very exciting, and for others, maybe a little nerve-wracking. So we're here, we're going to talk about visas. If we have a little bit of time at the end, we can maybe talk about other questions, but we're, yeah, definitely going to focus on visa for those of you still going to your appointments.
All right, can you see that okay?
Yep, yeah, now it's in preview mode. Perfect.
Perfect. Well, welcome all future Mavericks. We are very excited that you've been accepted to Minnesota State University Mankato. That makes you part of the Maverick community. And if you don't know what a Maverick is yet, that is the mascot of Minnesota State University. We are the Mavericks. So you will find out all kinds of information about what it is to be a Maverick when you come for orientation in August. The session today, we're going to quickly talk about your I-20 and paying the CIS I-91 fee if you have not done that already. Then we'll talk about scheduling your visa interview if you're still going through that process. And then finally, tips and suggestions to prepare for your visa interview. Okay.
All right, so I'll get us started. I think you all probably know this, but if you don't, that's okay. That's why we're doing this. The first step to your visa appointment is making sure that you have your Form I-20, because that is where so much of the essential information is going to be held for your visa application. So at this time, we are no longer issuing I-20s for fall semester unless you are already in the United States on an active F1 visa. So if for some reason you do not yet have your I-20 and are still planning to arrive this fall, please send me or Elizabeth a message so we can talk to you about what's going on and see if a fall start is still possible or not. And please know, if we say that it's not possible, we are doing this because we want you to be successful and not because we're trying to put roadblocks up for you. But anyway, finding that essential information on your I-20. One really important one that you need is your CIS ID. And this ID is on the top of your Form I-20 and will be your ID number for most things going forward with the US government. So that number always starts with N. And then it's followed by, I believe, 9 numerical digits. So right now, I know a lot of students are getting CVIS IDs that start with N003. So look for that number. The other information that we often get questions about is our school information. So our school code is really important for your DS 2019, not DS 2019, DS 160, sorry, on your DS 160. And that's telling both CVIS and the US government which institution you are, attempting to come to. So our school code is SPM 214F00215000. You won't remember this, don't worry. It's always going to be listed on your I-20 though, so you can go back and look there. One question I get a lot about the I-20 under the school information is there's a school code, and I believe it's called application date or school code and initial date that says January 23rd, 2001, I believe, or something like that. This date is the date that our school was allowed to host F1 students. So our first application to say, hey, we are interested in hosting F1 students was submitted to the US government and approved on that date. That date doesn't have anything to do with you or your admission date. So I know that causes confusion. So for you, that is a quick overview.
All right. So once you have identified that information on your I-20, the next step you can do, if you have not done this already, is pay the CIS I91 fee. This is a fee that needs to be paid before you go for your visa interview. And this fee, essentially, it tells the US government that the I-20 you are planning to use for your student visa is the university that you're planning to attend. So if you pay this CIS I-901 fee for Minnesota State University, it tells the US Embassy when you go to your appointment that that's the institution you have chosen to enroll at. So you may have applied to many different universities and received multiple I-20s, but when you get to the point of paying this I-901 fee, that's when you are really choosing which institution you're studying at, because this will later be tied to your visa interview and your visa. So that fee is a $350 fee. This is a US government fee. It's not going to the university, but it's required to activate your I-20 record. That payment is valid for 12 months. So if for some reason you are not able to join the university this coming fall semester and you need to defer your admission to the next semester in January, that CIS payment will still be valid, and we will be able to help you get an updated I-20 with the same CIS information so that you do not need to repay that CIS fee a second time. So keep that in mind. It is valid for 12 months if you need to defer your admission for any reason. Once you are able to make that payment, make sure to keep a copy of the receipt. You do want to print that receipt off and bring it with you to your visa interview as confirmation of the payment. And in some cases, depending on when you make that CIS fee payment and how many days you make it before your visa interview, it may or may not show up on the US Embassy record. So that's why having that receipt is very important, because if the payment has not transferred over to the US Embassy and they don't have record of that payment, you can use that receipt to say, hey, yes, I did make the payment. Here's the receipt. The record is fine. So with government, different government applications, all the information sometimes takes a couple days for it to show up and populate on a person's record. So having that receipt with you will help alleviate any headaches if they can't find a record of your receipt in that file. So bottom line, make that payment, print the receipt, bring it with you to your visa interview.
All right. So once you make that payment, and as Elizabeth mentioned, we do recommend making that payment a few days in advance of your visa appointment. So it's in the system. But after that, then you're actually going to fill out the DS160, which is the application to go physically into the embassy or consulate and do your appointment. So the first thing to do is to search for the US embassy or consulate that is nearest to you. So typically we do say, the nearest one to you is going to be the best option. Given our timing right now, July 15th, and you need to be here by August 19th, that's when orientation starts, or the very last day to arrive is August 20th. You know, we have about 1 month between. So the nearest embassy or consulate might not be the best option for you. You could look elsewhere to see if you can get an appointment in time to come here for orientation. So, typically we say find the nearest embassy or consulate. At this time of the year, though, you may want to search if you have the funding to go to another location for an earlier visa appointment. So I recommend take a screenshot or, if you have a pen or a camera, you can point at the phone wherever you're watching this. That would be good because the website listed here is going to be the best place to go and search for your US embassy or consulate and see what their wait times are. So travel.state.gov/content/travel/en/us-visas.html. So I'm saying this out loud really fast so that you know which one I'm talking about. But again, you're probably going to want to take a quick screenshot if you can. So once you know where you want to go for your visa appointment, then you're going to complete the DS160, which is the online non-immigrant visa application. So you need to fill one of these out each time you go to the embassy. And each time you complete a DS160, you will be required to make a payment of $185. And that is the visa fee. So again, just like that I-901, that fee does not come to us. It goes to the US government. So if you go to this website listed here, you'll be able to search for different locations. There's also usually a hyperlink, and I will put it out on the Telegram chat later. But there's a website where you can actually go and see what the wait times are at different locations.
All right. We've heard from many students that filling out the DS160 can be a little bit tricky because it is a government form and sometimes it's not always exactly clear what they're asking. So we created a DS160 guide that is found in your international portal. So when you log in, there's a section about applying for your F1 visa and filling out the DS160. I encourage you to read through that guide and use it while you are filling out the DS160 non-immigrant visa application, because it will help you with sections where we get a lot of frequently asked questions from students. So when you are filling out that DS160, plan to take at least 90 minutes to complete the DS160. The form does take a full hour to an hour and a half to fill out, and you want to make sure you're not just rushing through it, but taking your time answering the sections and the questions correctly so that when you go for your visa interview, all of the information is correct and accurate to the best of your knowledge. The visa officers at the embassies and the consulates have your DS160 application available to them during the visa interview. So they may use that as a point of reference for asking certain questions about your education and your background. So everything you put in the DS160, you want to make sure that it's true and accurate. Before you fill out the DS160, you want to prepare a photo that can be uploaded to the DS160 application. This photo is what will be used later if you are approved for the F1 visa. They will print the visa in your passport with that photo that you upload. That photo has certain requirements, very similar to getting a photo for your passport. And the requirements for for that photo information is on that travel.state.gov website. And we'll share a link with that later in this presentation of where you can go to find more information. But just make sure you read through the requirements for that photo and then upload that photo on your DS160 as you're filling it out. And if you recently took photos for a passport, it's likely that the passport requirements in your own country will meet the requirements for the DS160 photo upload, so you can use those similar photos. And one thing I want to highlight on the DS160 application is your US point of contact information. This is probably the section we get the most questions about is who is my point of contact in the US? Who do I put? Can I put Alyssa? Can I put Elizabeth? Should I put Pamela Burke, who issues the majority of the I-20s? So actually, the answer is you choose the option do not know. You do not need to put a specific person as your point of contact in the United States. So choose that do not know option. Do not put a name or person. And then you'll add in additional information, such as the organization name, which is Minnesota State University, Mankato, the relationship to you, which is the school official, and then the address of the university, which is listed here, that Centennial Student Union 250, Mankato, Minnesota, and the zip code, the phone number, and the email. So all of this information is in that DS160 guide in your international portal. So don't feel like you need to memorize this right now, but just know where to find that information. So when you get to that section on the DS160, you know exactly how to answer it.
All right. So, I know some of you are currently looking at those visa wait times in your home country and thinking, it's a 365-day wait for a visa appointment. I will not get there in time. So sometimes visa offices do keep certain slots available for students who need an expedited visa interview. So they understand that sometimes you do need to get to your university before you actually have your visa appointment date, right? So in those cases, you can request an expedited visa interview. In some places, it's called emergency visa interview. Really, these terms are kind of interchangeable, so you can search for both terms when looking for directions on how to apply, expedited or emergency. But the request process for most places is that first, even though that first available appointment might be 365 days away, the embassy will require that you actually choose that appointment date. So you need to pay the visa fee, complete the DS160, and then select the earliest available appointment. Again, whether that first available appointment is in September 2024 or September 2025, you need to choose that first available. After you select that first available appointment, then you can go ahead and submit your emergency request. But the embassy does need to see that you've made the payment first. Please note, we don't give any specific information beyond this process because every embassy and consulate has a different process. Some of them, especially those that contract with US visa docs, they have a pretty standardized process. You can go on their website and make the request, but other embassies may have an email that you need to email in order to inquire about the request. So please note, You know, some embassies and consulates may have a different process or timeline to schedule emergency requests. So, for the most accurate information, please visit the website for the embassy or consulate where you plan to apply. Because some of them you can apply within 90 days, some within 60 days. Either way, we're within that time frame right now, and you should be able to make a request. One thing I just want to say, I've heard from a lot of students like, oh, well, I'm going to just apply for an emergency visa appointment and I'm going to get there in time. While that's a plan, you need to have a second backup plan after that because these appointments are not widely available. There are very few slots available, and they're going to look at your position. So, really, even though we know these are available, we need to treat these as just one of your backup plans, not the only backup plan.
Okay, so once you have that interview date on the calendar and it is scheduled, the next thing you want to do is start preparing all of your documents for the date of your visa interview. There are quite a few documents that you will need to prepare. So start this process early so you're not rushing the day before your visa interview trying to collect all of your documents and get them ready. Avoid that stress and that headache and just plan ahead. There is a complete list of recommended documents to bring with you for your visa interview on the US Department of State website. So you can actually go to that link.mnsu.edu/visa docs to find the list that we're talking through here, as well as even more details, like that photo I mentioned earlier and the specific dimensions for that. So make sure you're checking everything on that website in preparation. But the first document and to preface, you will need to print off all of these documents. So when you are going in for your visa interview, you will not be able to bring a phone, a smartwatch, a computer, tablet, any type of device with you. So everything needs to be physically printed off so that you have the documents to give to the visa officer for your interview. So first document to bring with you is your I-20, your Form I-20. Make sure to print all 3 pages of that I-20 and to sign and date the I-20 with your signature. You will also need to bring a valid passport that has at least 6 months before the date of expiration. If you have more than that, that's even better. You will need to bring that printed CIS I-901 receipt. That's what we talked about earlier for that $350 payment. You will also need to bring the DS160 visa application fee receipt. That's that $185 payment. When you schedule your visa interview, make sure to print that off and bring that with you. You will want to bring a copy of that photo that you took before the DS160. Just bring a physical copy with you. That's more so if there was issues uploading that photo on your DS160 and it was not a clear image or it didn't meet the photo standards for whatever reason, you have a copy of that photo with you. You will also want to go to your MSU acceptance email and print off your admission letter that we sent you when you were first accepted. So you can find that on your application dashboard. This is different than your international portal. This is when you think back to when you first applied and you uploaded your documents for admission. That is where your admission letter is saved. So make sure to print a copy of that just for additional verification of your admission to MSU. You will also want to print the bank statement and the financial sponsor letter that you sent to Minnesota State University when you requested your I-20. So you can go and find those documents in your international portal. You also hopefully have copies of those saved somewhere. So print those off and bring those with you. And make sure that those bank statements are not older than 6 months. That's the recommended length of time of when those bank statements are issued. You will also want to bring copies of your academic transcripts. So this could be your high school or secondary transcripts. This might be your university transcripts if you are transferring to Minnesota State from another university. So bring all of your academic records from your high school and any university that you may have attended. In some circumstances, visa officers do like to review this information, so it's best to have those documents with you than not have them at all. If you are applying from a country where you were required to submit English proficiency results during the application process to Minnesota State University, you will also want to bring your English proficiency test results with you. So that might be the Duolingo English test results, the TOEFL, the IELTS, whichever exam you used. Print those off and bring them with you. If you are from a country where English is a primary language and you are not required to submit those, you do not need to worry about bringing those English proficiency test results with you. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about this, but documentation of ties to your home country. So what this means, if you are in a situation where your family owns a business or your family owns any land or property in your home country, you can bring documentation of um, those things as ties to your home country. And essentially what the visa officers are looking for in the visa interview is that you have motivation to return to your home country after studying in the US. So any physical documentation you have of those ties to your home country, such as property ownership or a business your family might have, that can just be added documentation that is like, yes, I have motivation to return to my home country because of all of these investments my family has in my home country. So if you do not have those things, do not worry. We'll talk about that more in depth in a little bit, but just wanted to add that to the list here. All right, just going to put all those up here since it's a newer slide.
Yes, thank you. So we realized that, it's very important for us to help everyone understand what type of visa you are actually applying for, because this typically will help you when you are formulating your answers at the visa interview. So some really important terms to remember are these three that we're going to go through. So an immigrant visa. So there are many different types of visas, many of them which have different letters, B, A, R, F, J, the list goes on. But each type of visa falls into one of these two types, either immigrant visa or non-immigrant visa. An immigrant visa is a visa issued to a person to immigrate to the United States to become a lawful permanent resident and remain in the US for an indefinite amount of time. So if you are searching for or seeking an immigrant visa, typically it's because you've already received employment in the US. Maybe you've won the lottery and you got a green card. So there are different types of visas for that. A non-immigrant visa, on the other hand, is a temporary visa for a person to be in the US for a specific purpose and a specific amount of time. So a B visa, I think, is the most common non-immigrant visa. That's the tourist visa, where you can enter for tourist reasons or business purposes. Most of you on this call right now will be applying for an F1 visa. Some of you might be applying for a J1, but most of you will be applying for F. The F1 visa is a non-immigrant visa type with a specific purpose, which is study, for a specific amount of time, so the duration of your program and completion of any visa benefits such as OPT. So as an F1 visa seeker, You need to show the visa officer that you have every intention of returning to your home country and you understand that your visa is only to allow you to study in the United States and then return home. So I think a lot of times when students go in, we forget the definition or don't understand because it's complicated. And we answer the questions almost as if you are there for an immigrant visa, but you are applying for a non-immigrant visa.
All right. So with that in mind, as a non-immigrant F1 visa applicant, we have a few common types of questions that we encourage you to prepare answers for. Visa officers can ask any variation of question that they want. So the questions that we recommend you to prepare answers for might be questions they ask, but just keep in mind they may ask follow-up questions based on your answers, or they might ask other questions that are specific maybe to students in your home country. So just be prepared to tell your story and use every opportunity to pivot your answer to your motivation to study in the US and your motivation to return to your home country after you finish your program. So, visa officers, when they're interviewing you, they are looking for what your genuine intention is. So, if they have any reason to believe your intention is not to actually study in the US, but to just use that student visa to get to the US and maybe stay here and work and live in the United States for an indefinite amount of time, that's a red flag. So they want to make sure that your intention is to study and return home. So all of your answers should be linked to that motivation to study and return home. If you are applying in a country where English is not an official language, and English might be your second, third, fourth, fifth language, just be prepared that most of the time the interviews are in English. So as you're preparing your answers, practice answering these questions in English just to show that preparation to the visa officer. So the first type of theme or question to prepare an answer for is, why do you want to study in the US? And why did you choose this specific university? So there are more than 4,500 universities in the United States. So why was Minnesota State University Mankato your top pick? Why was this the best fit for you? Be prepared to tell them a genuine answer. It might be that you met a student who went to Minnesota State University and had an amazing experience. And ever since that time, you've been super motivated to study at Minnesota State University. You looked at their programs, you looked at the scholarships and said, yep, this checks all of my goals for studying in the United States. I love this institution. They have my program. They provided scholarships. It can be an answer like that. Many visa officers tell us that students come in and they talk about the rank of the university, the number of faculty that teach there, the research that the university does. But these are all just general characteristics that anybody can find on a website. What the visa officer wants to hear is, why was this the best fit for you? Not what are all of the rankings of the institution. So be prepared to answer that question. And that's a very personal question of why you chose to study at the university. We can't answer that question for you. Only you know the answer to that question. So along with that, you want to talk about your specific academic goals in the US. So you might say, okay, I met this student who studied at Minnesota State University. They now are back in my home country. They had an amazing experience. I chose to study business because I have a goal of opening up a business in my home country. So I feel like learning business strategies in the US is going to be the best fit for me and my future career. So an answer like that ties into why you chose MSU and what your academic goals are, and how those goals will help you later on with your professional goals. So you want to be thinking not only about academics, but your long-term goals of how will the program you're studying in the US best prepare you for your future career in your home country or abroad. So all of these things tie together. And so as you're preparing your answer, be ready to kind of summarize what your goals are in just a couple sentences. You don't need to go into a ton of detail, but just give them the overview of this is my intention to study at this university. This is the program I'm studying, and this is what I want to do with that program for my future career. You also will likely get a question about how you plan to pay for your education in the United States. So that's the reason why you need to bring your financial bank statement and financial sponsor letter with you to the visa interview. And if you get a question like this, be prepared to tell them who your financial sponsor is and how they have this money available to them. So talk about their job, their career, their investments, whatever funding they might be using to pay for your education. So if it's your mother, you can talk about my mother has been working for this company. She has been saving this money and has put it aside in an account for me to use for my education. Here's the bank statement of her funding. So that's just one example. Whoever your financial sponsor may be, just make sure you know that information about them, how they are able to pay for your education in the United States. Because the visa officers want to make sure that you have strong financial backing to support yourself in the US. And then finally, going back to the purpose of the F1 visa interview, the purpose is, or the purpose of the F1 visa, the purpose is to study in the US and then return to your home country after completing your education. So you want to talk about your ties to your home country. So ties to your home country could be your family. Maybe your parents live in your home country, or your grandparents, or your siblings, or all of your friends are there. And so this is likely, these are strong ties and motivation for you to return to your home country. So you can use that as an example of saying, hey, my entire family lives in my home country. When I finish in the US, I want to return home so I can go and get a job and work and help support myself and maybe support my family when I go back to my home country. So whatever that motivation to return to your home country after completing your education, talk about what that is. All right. I know that's a lot of information. So if you have any specific questions about that, let us know. But Alyssa, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you really covered everything. I think it's just really important for everyone to remember that sometimes you can go in and answer everything like amazingly, 100% awesome, and maybe a denial still comes. Please know that a lot of times in those cases, it might be something that you have absolutely no control over, and it's very disappointing. But I just say that because I don't think this should ever affect your confidence or your knowledge that you are 100% qualified for the program you've been admitted to. So, yes, Elizabeth gives really good recommendations. So, everything she just went over, please take that to heart and try to incorporate it.
And just to add to that, practice, 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 practice. Just get comfortable talking about yourself and your goals because it can feel really awkward if you go in not practicing and talking about yourself for the first time. So find a friend, find a sibling, find a parent, record yourself on your phone if you have to, just answering these questions so you feel comfortable with it. And the goal of practicing is not to memorize answers, but just to be confident that you know why you want to study in the US and you know what all of your goals are. Because that can feel a little bit awkward talking about yourself sometimes. So that practice will just give you that confidence you need.
Yes, I have met so many amazing students, but they're so humble, which is amazing. You should be humble, right? But there's a time and a place to not be so humble. And I would say a visa appointment is one where, you know, in the middle, don't be arrogant, right? But somewhere in the middle between humble and arrogant, have confidence.
Absolutely. Lukeman, I see we have your hand raised. We will take questions at the end just for the sake of time. We just have a few more slides and then we will jump into questions. While we're going through these slides, if you just want to type your question in the chat, that might be the easiest. And then we will get to that question in just a couple slides.
All right. So the day of your visa interview, it's a big day. I know. So I think one thing to remember on the big day, nerves are normal. You are always going to be nervous. This is a big day. A big decision is going to be made. So just throughout the day, acknowledge your emotions, acknowledge that you might be nervous, but just take a deep breath and tell yourself it's going to be okay, because it will. So some tips for that day. As Elizabeth mentioned, you're going to go through a security checkpoint upon arrival at the embassy. So there's no phones or technology of any sort allowed with you during your appointment. You will leave all of that with the embassy security and collect it after your interview. So what I recommend, and I think, what Elizabeth has recommended in the past is before you go to the visa interview, please just leave all of the electronics at home. Go through your bag and make sure you take it all out. I mean, keep your phone, but the storage at security at embassies is usually not very large. It's big enough for a phone, maybe a smartwatch if you have it, but laptops, things like that may not fit. So do yourself a favor and just bring the essentials with you so you know, oh, I have my phone, my smartwatch, maybe a flash drive, and I'm going to hand those straight over. I am guilty of even when I think that I've taken everything out of my bag, embassy security has said, no, there is something else in here. And I have had to go through and literally take out everything to find I'm not joking. It was this tiny little flash drive. It was actually not even a flash drive. It was a toggle for a mouse that I had forgotten to take out. But that is what caused this 10-minute delay. So even those of us that are familiar with this, it happens. And that's why we recommend arrive early. Because even though you may know for sure that you got all of this out of your own bag, there may be someone like me in front of you who is like, what? There's another, how? Where is it? And so you have to kind of plan for other people's security checks as well. So arrive early, because I say this in every webinar. In the US, if you arrive 15 minutes early, you are on time. If you arrive on time, you are late. And if you arrive 15 minutes late, don't even bother showing up. That's how time works in the US. So arrive early, just so you don't have to worry about any of that. Dress for success. You do not need to wear a ball gown or go in a tuxedo. You do not need a suit and tie, but please go in looking professional, so business casual, something I always say again that your grandma and grandpa would approve of. Okay. Usually if grandma and grandpa approve of it, it's embassy worthy. Okay. I know that right now holy jeans are in and crop tops and things like that. I think you should wear whatever you want, but this is a time to show that you are a serious student. And so I do recommend going a little bit more formal and maybe a little bit more on the conservative side dress-wise. For ladies, a nice blouse and trousers or a skirt would be great. For men, some nice pants and a button-up is just fine. Even if you have a nice t-shirt, just make sure it's not wrinkly. Um, so just dress for success. You'll be good. Remember your documents. Not only remember them, but have them in a file where you know the location. You will not have anywhere to sit down. If you need to provide them with a document, you don't want to be rummaging through your papers and using your precious time finding documents. So know where they are. So if you are asked, you can give it to them right away. Please know, sometimes they don't ask for any documents. That's pretty normal. They're going to go off of what's on your DS160. And so, you know, we recommend preparing them, having them available because you could be asked. But if you're not asked for them, that's pretty normal. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will be denied or approved. Okay. Next one, eat a good meal beforehand. You could be waiting several hours in the embassy with no food. Um, so really there's only a drinking fountain usually with water, if even at the local embassy. So you want to make sure you go in and you are ready to wait for a little while. Um, don't be like me. I have this awful habit of not eating breakfast before I leave home. And then I usually get to work and I'm in meetings and more meetings. And then by lunchtime, I'm starving and my brain is not processing the way it should be because I haven't eaten today. All right. That's never a good setup for when you have a really important meeting, like a visa appointment. So don't get hangry. That's when you're so hungry, you get angry and you can't think properly. So avoid being hangry, eat a good meal beforehand, get some protein in you. Make sure that you have that energy for your appointment and for your brain to work properly. The interview is going to be at a stand-up visa window. So please know that your documents should be organized so you can pull them out. If you are very short or very tall, you might have to adjust how your head is to look the visa officer in the eye. It also means that you might need to speak loudly at the window based on how far away the visa officer is, if they're really tall, if they look like they can't hear you. That window is there, so please speak loudly and clearly so that they can hear all of your answers. If they can't hear you, that's already a red flag to them. And the last tip here, this is actually going to be the most important, best and most important for last. Relax. I know this is a really high stress moment. There's a lot riding on this, but take a deep breath and relax. Visa interviews are typically 2 to 3 minutes long. And so if you're really nervous the whole time, it's going to be harder for you to share your story. A little bit of nerves is fine. They understand. But before you go up to the window, I know this sounds lame, but here's my lame mom advice, okay? Before you go up to the window, stand up nice and straight, take a deep breath in, blow it out slowly. That immediately puts your body in a more confident and relaxed state. Whether or not you believe this, it's true. Deep breath in, long, calm breath out, and then go up to the window and say to yourself, I can do this and I deserve to be here. With that, you're going to speak calmly. It's okay if your voice shakes a little bit. Again, the visa officer understands, but you're going to speak calmly, concisely, and you're going to do a great job. All right. So with these tips, I think you have a really good shot.
Perfect. All right. Finally, we have a couple of resources that we recommend for you to look into as you're preparing for your visa interview. And one of those resources is called Argo Visa. This is an organization of former US visa officers who've worked in embassies around the world interviewing hundreds of thousands of visa applicants. So they started an organization to advise people going for visa interviews and how to prepare for those interviews. And they have a section that's specific to F1 students. So I highly recommend looking on their YouTube channel, watching their videos, listening to their advice and suggestions, and just learning from what they have to say to prepare yourself. Also, make sure you are looking at the U.S. Department of State website. This is the official authority for all U.S. visas. This is the government organization that oversees U.S. embassies and consulates around the world. So that travel.state.gov website is where you can go to find all of the information we've shared throughout the presentation, from the DS160 details, the documents to bring to your visa interview. So make sure you are familiar with that website. NAFSA is a professional organization in the US for international educators, and they've put together a document of the top 10 visa application tips. So you can find that at the website listed here at link.mnsu.edu/visa tips. And then finally, MSU is offering free visa prep sessions where you can meet with another international student who's currently studying at MSU and has gone through this process themselves. And they can walk you through how to prepare for your visa interview, and they'll walk you through questions and use it as a time to pretend like you're in the interview and get comfortable answering certain questions. So to schedule those visa prep sessions, you can go to the link.mnsu.edu/visa prep website, or it's also linked in your international portal. So you can find that booking page there to schedule one of those sessions. All right.
All right, so that's kind of the end of our planned tips. I do have to head out here in just a minute for another meeting. But before that, fall 2024 orientation is right around the corner, and we're so excited to meet you. Please know that attendance is mandatory, and you do need to arrive on or before August 19th. Orientation is a full week, so from Monday, August 19th through Friday, August 23rd. Don't worry, there's time to relax in that week. We don't have you scheduled the entire time. We recommend that you arrive on or before August 18th so that you are past jet lag before orientation begins. But if you need to, the final arrival date is August 20th. So as long as you are here in Mankato on August 20th, that is okay. The first day that you may enter the United States is going to be July 20th, which is next week already, or is it even? No, it's Saturday. It's Saturday. So some of you might be coming into Mankato already. If you are here in Mankato next week, come see us. We are in the Centennial Student Union, and our office is open 9 to 3:30 until orientation. So 9 a.m. to 3:30, come on over, say hi. We'll get you set up with a MAV card. We'll get you a SIM card, all that good stuff.
And we have awesome peer mentors that are going through training, and they will be there waiting for you at international orientation and will be helping you out throughout the entire orientation week. This is a group of current international students who have gone through all of the things you will be experiencing as a new international student at MSU. So they're super excited to meet you. And we're super excited to meet you as well in August. So that wraps up our presentation for today. Alyssa, if you need to run your meeting, I can stay on a little bit longer and do some Q&A. So if anybody has questions, type those in the chat box or the Q&A box, and I'll take a couple minutes here to answer those.
I am the one who has been doing the webinar on YouTube. So at this time, I am going to end the YouTube stream. If you have further questions, though, our email, international@mnsu.edu, is going to be the best way to get in touch with us. But if you're on Zoom, yes, thank you, Elizabeth, for staying on. And, we're just really excited to meet you this fall. So please keep in touch, join the Telegram group so you can get to know your friends who are also starting this fall. And we're going to see you before you know it. So thank you and have a good day or evening wherever you're at.
All right. For those of you who have any questions that were not answered in the webinar, I'll stay on for a few minutes. So feel free to type those into the chat box or that Q&A box, and I will do my best to answer those questions for you.